Alright everybody, it's time for part 1 of my best of Nextfest February 2024. The Nextfesting has begun, and we have 7 days of videos to go through, so let the pain begin. We are starting things off with a few demos we played before the event that went up early, and our first one is Spilled. This is from a Kickstarter that is going on as of the time of recording. They did meet their goal, and what we have here is a very wholesome game about trying to clean up the environment. Using our boat with its own kind of like vacuum suction, we are going to suck up all the disgusting oil and other things in the water to try and clean things up, save the animals, and recycle it to make our boat better. This is by no means going to be a very brutally challenging game, at least from what we saw in the demo, but it definitely is a great kind of zen casual game to play, as you'll move from area to area, cleaning up bigger and bigger messes, all while your ship improves to let you do more with it. The Kickstarter, as I said, is already a success, and I am curious to see if there is going to be like any additional systems or elements added in the finished version. But if you're looking for a very relaxing game to play with a great message, then this is an easy recommendation. We now switch to something with a bit more bite to it, and that is Arco. The story of Arco is told through kind of 3 different characters or vignettes, and really didn't get a chance to get like the full idea of what the story is going to entail. But we did get to see plenty of the combat, and the combat itself is really interesting in what they're trying to do with almost like a turn-based round, almost timeline system. How this works is that every action you do kind of happens in real time along with the enemy, but different moves and abilities can have a different kind of build-up, so it can land in 1 round or 2 rounds, stuff like that. So if I try to use a 2-round move at the same time the enemy attacks, they will basically knock me out. But if I'm far enough away, or if I move away from their attack first, and then initiate the 2-round smack, I can possibly get that in. And this kind of, again, like real-time turn-based system is present throughout the challenge of this game. You're only going to control at least 1 character, at least from what we saw during this demo, so you need to plan all your moves accordingly. Things get very interesting when enemies who can actually move during the turn base are introduced. You'll be able to upgrade your character, get new skills, or upgrade the skills you currently have. And this one is looking to be a very challenging take on turn-based design, and definitely one worth keeping an eye out for. And now we turn to the actual Nextfest Day 1, starting with Mullet Mad Jack. This is a game that's told with a beautiful kind of like 90s anime aesthetic, as you can see with the Akira slide right there. It is the future, and robo-billionaires control everything, but we have the power of live streaming to help us. And we participate in events where, using the power of our audience, we are essentially immortal, 10 seconds at a time. But if we don't keep them interested in our killing, they will just let us die. So the game itself kind of follows in a similar style of post-Void, where you must be constantly moving and shooting and keeping your time up. Anytime you're hit, you will lose your seconds. You'll gain seconds back by killing enemies, performing kind of environmental kills, and unlocking other conditions as well. There's a roguelike element to the game, as in each kind of chapter, which takes place over a set of floors, beating a floor will give you one of different perks. This could be a new weapon, a new modifier, etc. This one is definitely aiming to be on the harder side. I would also advise you to raise the field of view up before you start playing. And the reason why is that I found it so zoomed in, it was a little hard to like figure out where enemies and finding the door quickly otherwise. This one definitely has style to spare, and it's also going to be designed to be, again, very difficult, especially if you play on the higher difficulty levels. I'm really curious to see where this game goes, not only with its story and its aesthetics, but what else they're going to add to make the gameplay more challenging. So, if you like some brutal 90s nostalgia and blood, along with a whole lot of violence, then this is an easy recommendation. We can now go to another very stylized game with #Blood, and that's B-L-U-D, not B-L-O-O-D. In this one, we play as a girl who's just moved to a new town, and there may be vampires and evil unnatural things trying to take over. But fortunately, we're a little girl who knows how to punch, dodge, use weapons, and deal with anything that gets in her way. The game itself is kind of set up as like a Zelda action adventure. You'll explore the town and look for quests, power-ups, and beat up anything that gets in your way. I adore the aesthetics and the art style of this one. The animations are wonderful. There's just a lot of flavor to the different portrait art, to how characters behave, and so on. The combat and general movement is a little bit on the jankier side. Despite having really long reaches with her punches, our main character can still run into situations where enemies can kind of attack even though we're swinging at them. And while the game has a very cute aesthetic to it, the dodging and general gameplay can get a bit on the harder side, especially when you're surrounded by lots of enemies or trying to perform a lot of actions really fast. We really didn't get this chance to see any kind of progression in this one, as the demo was just a series of kind of individualized sections. But there's definitely something here for a very stylized and I guess modern contemporary take on a Zelda-like. Demon Spore was a game I was really looking forward to playing after the initial trailer, and with the demo, I am a little bit disappointed in what I was seeing. There's still some potential here depending upon what you're looking for in an action roguelite. We are trapped in a facility with a ever-evolving, mutating, viral entity that is going to try and hunt us down. In order to get out, we must explore one room at a time, trying to stay one step ahead of it. The general idea here is that you are very weak. There are weapons you can find, but enemies and the kind of organism can kill you in a single blow, and death can come very fast. The idea is you're supposed to be playing kind of cat and mouse with the organism, trying to stay away from its major source, find weapons and items that can help you, and kind of move from room to room and get these things that you need. My first problem is that I'm not a fan of kind of like the filter or post-processing they're using for it. I had a hard time spotting what are interactables in the environment unless I get really close to them. And the game seems to really make you want to use these items as a means of getting around the entity. But it didn't really feel like good to me in terms of controlling the character and attacking. The game reminds me a lot of Teleglitch, in that your starting weapon or starting like means of offense are kept very weak for a specific reason, so that you do want to hunt down the different weapons, upgrades, and etc. But I just found it to be a little bit more on the frustrating side. There's definitely something here, and I'm curious to see where the finished game will go. If you're looking for a very challenging kind of horror roguelite, this could be a very solid game, but if you're not a fan of kind of having like a very weak character to begin each run with, this one may be a little too frustrating for you. We now turn to Rotwood. This is the next game from Clay Entertainment, and it's their take on the 4-player beat-em-up. This is kind of reminiscent of the Castle Crusher style, where you'll play as a team of varying characters, and kind of your abilities will be based on what weapons and items you equip to them. You are trapped in a mysterious forest where all manner of flora and fauna are out to get you, In order to find your friends and solve what's going on, you are going to have to beat them up your way through. The kind of gameplay here is that you have a light attack and a heavy attack, and you'll be able to find different passive modifiers and special skills as you explore the world. The roguelite elements come in by collecting persistent resources, finding people to bring back to your base camp that will unlock additional features, services, and etc. And every time you go into the Rotwood, you are going to have a procedurally generated area, and you'll have to decide where you go node by node. The game can be played for 1 to 4 players. And from what I played of this one, my main concern is that combat feels a little, I guess, like stuck or rooted. Like, you're not as reactive as you would see from a game like Streets of Rage, Fight and Rage, etc. And the game, by playing it just by myself, did feel a little bit repetitive. And this feels like one of those games where it's going to really come to life when you have at least 2 or 3 people along for the ride, and you can kind of split up the beat 'em up duties. Now, the combo systems itself is also kept very simplistic. There are a few that you'll learn and a few that the game kind of has available at the start, but if you're hoping for kind of like a very unique feel, very like juggle heavy beat 'em up, I'm not seeing that with this. There's definitely potential here, and I'm curious to see how this will shake out when you can get like a full group of people together, beat 'em upping, jumping, punching, and all that. So if you do enjoy a beat 'em up and looking for one you can play with your friends, I would at least check this one out. We are switching over to Metroidvania, the first of many for this series, with Eden's Guardian. This is a Metroidvania you can tell by the art style was definitely inspired by Blasphemous. But for this one, kind of our unique selling point is that there is a greater emphasis on this kind of projectile sword throw maneuver. When you throw your sword at an enemy and sticks to them, you gain the ability to teleport at them. This can set up slashes, as well as use for maneuvering around, as you can bounce a sword, then teleport where the sword bounces over to. This game is definitely going for more advanced platforming and difficult platforming compared to Blasphemous. With that said, we really didn't get to see too much in terms of advanced swords play or combat. You get health back by kind of activating this special form that consumes your mana, and then you unlock lifesteal while you're in that form. There really isn't too much to say about this one. I'm interested to see how else the game will stand out from Blasphemous' design and just Metroidvania design in general, but the game has an okay foundation. So if you're someone who's hankering for another Metroidvania, especially one that's going to involve a lot of jumping, dashing, and combining all that together, this could be an interesting one to check out. But if you didn't like Blasphemous' style or looking for an original Metroidvania, then this may not be the right game for you. We now switch over to Pepper Grinder, a 2D digging platformer. When our treasure is stolen by pirates, we find a very useful drill that we're going to have to use to dig them up across the land, find treasures, beat the bad guys, and do all kinds of other platforming MacGuffin hunting. As you can tell by the footage, our key element here is our drill. Once you start drilling into any kind of dirt or surface, then you are going to keep moving in that direction, which means that you need to be really careful when doing more fine controls and movements like that. Every level is full of secrets, and you'll have to use your drill in different ways, including solving puzzles and combat. The drill physics here remind me a little bit of, in a strange way, Echo the Dolphin, in terms of being able to dash, use that dash to propel yourself out of like water or dirt to go higher up, and there are kind of secrets and collectibles to find. In terms of the difficulty, this one looks like it's going to be, if you're just playing it for the story or get through each levels, a moderate time. But if you want all the rewards and all the MacGuffins, you're going to have to push yourself and drill really well to do it. I enjoy the aesthetics of this one. Everything has a very charming look to it, and each level does appear to have some good variety in terms of what you're going to be doing in it. So if you're looking for another different kind of platforming where you'll be doing as much drilling as you will be jumping, then you should definitely check this one out. And now we go to Bears in Space. This is an FPS slash kind of action exploration style game. We are trapped on a robot world and our body has been merged with a bear, and you must use the powers of lasers and bear in order to get off this planet. The game is kind of going for like a retro future chic, as you'll fight a bunch of like clackering and old school style robots using like 50s era looking sci-fi weapons. The game is definitely going for like a very wide berth in terms of mechanics and storytelling. As you'll play, you'll get new tools that will allow you to move around the world better. You'll be able to unlock weapon upgrades, new weapons, and get access to even more crazy quote-unquote bear powers that you must use to deal with enemies when the time is right. The game features an interesting setup where the more you use a weapon, you'll gain experience, which once you've gotten enough, the weapon will level up, giving it more power or changing some base features of it. It reminds me a little bit of Ratchet and Clank in that regard. Now, in terms of the gunplay and platforming, it does feel a little bit looser than you may expect for like this kind of design. Enemies can shoot you almost in a bullet hell style, and it can be a little bit hard to dodge when everything is happening all at once. Your jump is a little bit lower than you might expect for a game like this, but I'm wondering if there will be upgrades that improve it as it goes on. This one has a lot of potential to it. It was a little bit rough at the start of the game. The beginning was kind of slow thanks to a lot of like story and jokes, but once kind of the gameplay took root, it does show a lot of potential for someone looking for a more humorous and outrageous sci-fi FPS. But we're not done yet. I did play a few slower games off stream that I'm going to fit into this day one video. And we're going to start with Shapez 2. This is a sequel to Shapez.io, a minimalist logistics take on the Factorio formula that did incredibly well. For the sequel, they're going bigger, bolder, and in 3D. Your mission is to feed the unending void here shapes. All manner of shapes, circles, squares, combinations thereof, and more. As you complete tasks for the void, you will unlock additional parts. This will allow you to set up more advanced production chains, more advanced assembly lines, and of course, more shapes. What's new in Shapez 2 is that you now have the added benefit of the third dimension, allowing you to build in different layers, allowing you to set up machinery that can interact with like something on like layer 2 and layer 1. And you'll need to make use of this if you want to set up for some of the advanced goals and continue progression. The GUI in this one is really well done. It's a very smart GUI. Conveyor belts will automatically combine as you kind of move around, and I love that the game now has this kind of shape predictor that when you place anything that will modify a shape, it will show you what the intended kind of result is going to be. It makes it a lot easier and removes some of the guesswork that was in the first one. Now with that said, this is still a very logistics minded game. So if you're not into the sweet dopamine rush of conveyor belts, timing, and making things as optimized as possible, then Shapez 2 is not going to work for you. But if you enjoyed the first one, or looking for a very solid Factorio-like that is going to be at least a little bit easier to play, then this is an easy recommendation. And now for our last game of today's part, it is Botany Manor. This is a puzzle adventure game that, I guess the simplest way to describe this would be, what if we combine botany with the return of the Obra Dinn, with a lot less murder and intrigue. We are at our friend's manor, and we're trying to kind of figure out what is going on, and to do that, well, we're going to have to grow some plants. A lot of them. The structure of this one is that each chapter presents you with seeds of varying plants. Your mission is to use the clues and items around in order to properly grow said plant. Each plant, of course, has different particularities in terms of the soil, the conditions that you need in order for it to grow. Figure them out using the clues around, and you'll unlock kind of the next chain of events. This one is entirely low stakes. If you're looking for murder, intrigue, and all that, this is not going to be the game for you. But this one was very charming to play. I like the kind of mystery, low stakes atmosphere that Botany Manor is presenting. From what I played, the kind of puzzling side is going to be, I would say, maybe easy to moderate. The game gives you plenty of clues, and you'll find more and more in the world to kind of help you out in terms of what you need to do to grow the plants. So if you love plants and you love puzzles, and looking for a game to unwind to do both, then definitely check out the demo for this one. And with that, day one of my Best of Nextfest 2024 is over, but we are not done by any means. We still got plenty more games to show off. Tune into the streams to see them live. And let me tell you your game for a future stream and video, please reach out. And with that, I'm going to relax and get ready for night number 2. That's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to do the YouTubing stuff people tell you to do. If you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, check out my books wherever they are sold. Visit our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where you some of the art and science of games.